Let's call this meeting to order. St. Mary's County Metropolitan Commission, our regular meeting for Thursday, October 23rd, 2025. Welcome, everybody. Sitting in for Chairman Joe Gould would be me. So bear with me. We'll get through this meeting as quickly and as efficiently as possible. First on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. We have the agenda here. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as written?
I make that motion to approve the agenda as written.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any not in favor? Okay, moving right along. Next, we have a length of service award for Mr. Kevin Quinn. Please come forward. And Mary has a few kind words to say for you.
Kevin Quinn began his employment with the Metropolitan Commission in September of 2005 as an operator trainee and was quickly promoted to unlicensed operator in April 2006. After completing his 3 years of on-the-job training and passing the Maryland Class 5A license exam, he was promoted to licensed operator on October 1st, 2008. In July of 2023, Kevin was promoted to Assistant Superintendent at the Marley Taylor Water Reclamation Facility. Kevin is well respected by his fellow employees and is one of our go-to guys when training new operators. He always makes well thought out suggestions to improve operations at Marley Taylor and has been integral to our success over the years. He has represented our organization as a member of the Southern Section of the Water and Wastewater Operators Association, WWOA, in several positions, including his service on the executive board of WWOA, where he served in many capacities, including director. Kevin has also served on the planning committee for the annual Chesapeake Tribe Conference and currently serves as the committee awards chair. It has been a pleasure working alongside him over many years, and we are fortunate to have him on staff. He is appreciated for being an outstanding and dedicated employee. Please join me in congratulating Kevin on his 20 years of service.
I understand they have an app now for retirement. And it
Put it on
counts
the
it down.
computer.
You're probably well aware of that.
Not yet, but I will.
You will become the
I'm
same.
close to that.
Okay, next we have the approval of our meeting minutes for September 25th. Do we have a motion to accept the meeting minutes for that meeting?
I'll move to accept the minutes for September 25th, 2025, regular session meeting.
Okay, we have a motion, and I think you must abstain.
I'll second.
We have a second, okay, and you must abstain. Say aye. Vote on that, all in favor, there we go. Aye. Brain cramp, sorry. Any nays? The ayes have it, and one abstain. Thank you. Next, we have a consent agenda. Are there any questions related to that, to any of the items in the agenda? And if not, can we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as written?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the consent amendment agenda as written.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second. Did I get that
All in favor?
out?
All right. So then we move on to new business. Is that correct? All right. We have a real property management update. Kelly, Jago.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. You're welcome.
So annually, I provide you all with a short review update of our property issues and the acquisition and easement issues and what we're trying to do to resolve those. These challenges came about because the commission assumed responsibility over the years for certain water and wastewater systems, smaller systems built by developers. And we also, over time, have discovered certain properties that we don't have appropriate easements for access, that type of thing. These properties often came about because they were built by a developer and the public works agreement was not fulfilled. And as a result, those properties are now often located on an HOA open space. Or, as I said just before, the asset was originally built by the predecessor. And then we have a couple of properties that were constructed not on the property dedicated to Metcom, but maybe a little bit on that property and a little bit on another. So those things get a little tedious to resolve. But we created a priority list and tackled the well sites due to concerns about state requirements concerning ownership and permitting, and also take into consideration upcoming projects in the approved capital improvement plan and budget, as well as operational needs. The operational folks will often bring certain things to my attention that may be going on a site that they're concerned about or need resolved. In 2023, we determined it was more feasible to discontinue trying to subdivide out these small station parcels. It's very expensive. It's very lengthy. There were certain obstacles put in our place, like planting agreements, that just don't make sense. And then some HOAs want money because they believe that they're entitled to that money, that perhaps we're taking something from them, even though was dedicated on plat by the developer. It really was clearly utility space. So it has just become better to seek an easement in areas like that and work with the HOA to make sure that we have a good easement over the property. We can put up a fence, create a driveway if needed. And we already have sites that we were operating in easement areas, such as there's a pumping station out on 235 that's in a SMUCO easement. And our pump station at the airport will always be an easement due to different FAA regulations related to the airport. That no longer happens. We don't have this going forward because since the early 2000s, we have an in-house system, so the deeds are part of the developer package. We also have regular capital improvement project meetings with engineering, the grants administrator, myself, operations, so that we're constantly reviewing the different priorities for capital projects and borrowing. And we also no longer accept station sites that are too small or unacceptable. So since 2010, we have recorded deeds for approximately 25 properties, which have been outstanding. And some of these some are easier than others for different reasons. Sometimes we had one property that had not even gone into the developer name, but remained in the personal name of the developer who was deceased. So that required estate work, and so that can get a little tedious. Right now, we have approximately 11 properties outstanding that need a survey, and we need to get with the property owner. I think nearly all of those are HOAs. And in 2021, the list was at about 20. So 10 of these have since been resolved by deed or easement. So in addition to that, I gave you a spreadsheet that briefly discusses some of the capital improvement projects, coming up. Several of those we ask for rights of entry from folks just so that we can go do some work, such as a water connection. Breton Bay and Town Creek are examples of that. I had somebody just before the meeting started who came in with a right of entry for Town Creek, so that was good. And Forest Run Wastewater Pump Station, SMECO conveyed site additional property to us so that we can increase our site there for the upgrade that's needed, and the adjoining property owner has provided a temporary construction easement there. And Southampton Sewer and Water Rehab, which you may remember because I'm pretty sure we talked about that last year. That's a joint project with the county. We needed easements from 58 property owners So far, we have 50, we have 3 rates of entry, and we probably have about, I think that leaves about 5 folks who probably just are not going to sign an easement for whatever reason. Some holdouts. And the really big thing I've been working on the past couple of months, I would say, is the grinder pump project. So this year, we normally install, I think, 40 to 50 grinder pumps. Does that sound right, Ed? Like, yeah. This year, it's 100. And they're mostly going to be in the Piney Point, Tall Timbers area. Luckily, at the beginning of that project, the initial project in the late 80s, we did get a lot of easements, but not all of them, of course. So I sent out 38 easements. No, I sent out 56 easements, and I have 38 back so far. A couple of people there also had to sign rights of entry for different reasons. Sometimes people remain in a property that has not been deeded to them, so we can't accept an easement from them if they're not the property owner, type of thing. So that's where we are. Do you have any questions?
So you either need to get the property deeded over or have an easement to be able to access it and so forth.
That's,
Okay.
that's what we're always shooting for, so that we don't run into trouble in the future.
What means do you have on these people that say, well, I'm not gonna grant an easement? Maybe they need to hear the word eminent domain or something like that.
So for things like the Southampton project, is that what you mean?
Well, on any of them
Or
where
any of
you
them.
had 50 some and you only got
Right.
38,
We
does that
bel-
mean you can't cross those pieces of property whether you have to grant it the easement or how does
We
that work?
believe chapter 113 entitles us to come onto the property
Okay,
and perform the work for, especially for systems that are already there.
easement or no easement.
Yeah.
Okay, that's kind
But
of what I was
it's
asking.
not, that's not the most desirable approach to keep people happy and possibly, concerns about safety of our staff. But I don't know that we've had really serious issues with people.
Right,
And it's not really eminent domain in terms of acquisition of the property.
right, you're not really giving up the
It's
property, it's just an
eminent
easement.
domain in terms of our ability to access the facilities that we maintain.
Right.
But as Kelly said, it's not the greatest first shot across the bow when you'd like to get an easement or get fee simple property to tell them, first of all, you don't need it, and second of all, if you don't give it to us, we're gonna do what we want anyway. So I think this approach is much more palatable. And I'd like to also add what Kelly didn't tell you is that we got the Smecco property fee simple, got the deed, got a plat, got all that recorded for $1. We spent a little bit more than that on the plat and the deed research and everything, but
Sure.
we got it from Smecco for $1. Reason I bring that up is on behalf of the board, we sent a letter to their CEO thanking them for their cooperation because they are a sister utility. So we do try to follow up and thank people at every opportunity.
They were very, very helpful.
They were
Yeah,
very, very
very
good.
responsive and helpful.
Well, that's good, I think we work the same way with their kind of
Mhm.
properties and we would do probably the same thing then.
State highway's a little bit. But Smecco's great. Smecco's great.
Some good, some not so good, okay. All right, does anybody else have any comments or questions?
Mr. Chair, just briefly, an observation, just to thank you, having witnessed the work that you've done at Fighting Point. Your crews have been active.
Oh, good.
And we have a lot of kids running around the neighborhood. And I just commend the team here for the care they have taken to drive carefully in the neighborhood. They have been very thorough, they have been very clean in the work that they have done.
That's
I
good.
just,
That's good. It's hard work, yeah.
no doubt. And
Yeah.
so I commend your team and everybody here for the fine work they've done.
It's good to hear. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ken.
Okay, thank you.
Next on the agenda is our fiscal year 2027 capital improvement budget and operating budget assumptions. Sean and George.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. And you talk about driving slow in the neighborhood. We've implemented the fleet tracking software, as you know, and we track our vehicles. We just purchased stickers for the cars that it's, vehicle speed is tracked by GPS is basically what it says. And the reason for that is we've been getting beat on the roadways for driving the speed limit when people want to pass.
Right.
So we're gonna let people know that we drive the speed limit. The GPS has helped us maintain our speeds because it'll notify us when we are speeding in excess of 10 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. So fleet tracking is a good thing overall, and we're glad to see it's working down at Piney Point. So commissioners, today where we have are our budget assumptions. We have a pretty lengthy slide presentation. Really, there's a lot of slides in here that are for the benefit of Commissioner Fleece, Hafner, and Anas because they have not been through this process before. Mr. Dugan and Mr. Gould couldn't be here today, but it is not by design. They've gone through this before. It is very arduous, at least this first task, and not to dissuade you from your attention span, but you will see almost every one of these slides again in some form or another separately between now and the end of April, all the way through our public hearing process. The idea today, again, is to give you a presentation. It may appear like we're trying to gloss over, but prior to our meeting, I was given direction that we want 5 seconds per slide, which if you know me is a virtual impossibility. So as we speed through this, it will appear perhaps that we're glossing over some of the slides. That is not the intent. If you have a question at any time, obviously, we ask you to chime in.
All right, we'll give you 6 minutes. 6 seconds. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
6 seconds.
6 seconds.
The first slide is basically just the budget process, where we are at today, and I encourage you just to watch the animation instead of your screen, it's probably a little bit more interesting. We're at this stage today. We're at the assumptions and board concurrence with the assumption stage. There is a lot for us to do. We'll be in the process of putting budget instructions out to all of our people. We will be going through requests for additional funding. We'll vet those out. We'll see whether they have merit enough to be requested. We're going to go through a whole series of meetings over the next few months. A couple of interesting factoids for especially the new commissioners. We have 42 different revenue sources that the commissioners collect. For new commissioners, the majority is generated by water and sewer use, with about 30% coming from the sewer use and about 22% coming from metered sewer. Operating budget categories I find interesting. It's an interesting graph that we put together. Based on the FY25 audit, which we're in the process of finalizing now in our fiscal department, these numbers will change. This is based on 2024 audited numbers and 25 expense. By category, it's interesting to see how our $20 million plus budget is divided between administrative, overhead, sewer, water, and engineering. The fact is, when all is said and done, we only have water and sewer charges, and all those have to roll into those two categories. So our engineering is split into sewer and water by 60% and 40%, and our administrative is split 3 different ways: 64% sewer, 27% water, 9% engineering. It's done based on the amount of time and money allocated to those different divisions. So in the end, that's really what we look like. And rule of thumb, sewer is typically 2 to 2.5 times more than water expenses. It just so happens 2.2 is about where we're at historically. So we're right in line with typically what the industry would say we're supposed to be. How that looks to the layman, this is sort of the technical behind the scenes graph. A lot of people like this graph instead. For every dollar that's spent, about 52 cents goes towards sewer. And again, that's 2 to 2.5 times more. If you actually vet it out, it's 2.48 times. So there you go. No matter how you look at it, we're between the normal range of water and sewer. The disparity, I call it, between the two. The sewer is definitely more expensive. General administrative assumptions, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages, almost 6 pages of joy here. Instead of going through each bullet one by one, we know that the commission has the ability to read, which you can do anytime. On each slide, we're just going to highlight a couple things that we find might be of some interest to you. The first one is zero-based budgeting. There's incremental-based budgeting and zero-based budgeting. Just because an individual or department indicates that there's a need for additional funding doesn't necessarily mean that that need is justified in terms of increasing the budget. We go through that process every year. Similarly, and not being discussed today, with every vacant position, we don't just fill it, we evaluate it to see if there's a need in a different department, whether it's water or sewer, or if it needs to be reclassified to a higher or lower position. If it's a higher position, we typically come back to the board because it has a fiscal impact for the next year. But short of that, we'll go on to the next. There we go. Vacancy rate, interestingly enough, we don't fund our entire operating budget. We don't fully fund our entire operating budget. What we see as a general rule is about a 2 to 3% vacancy rate. When people leave, depart, retire, or are terminated, there's that period of time to rehire. Every single year, we've looked at that over the past 8, 9 years, and we used to have a 3% vacancy rate. Right now, we have 97% of the positions filled. 2% seems fairly reasonable, but I just wanted the board to know that each year we don't fully budget for all of our expenses in terms of personnel. So when we talk about rates and charges, whenever you hear anything negative, we're doing everything we can to keep that as low as possible. We could fund it. We don't see the need to do that. The next slide, similarly, we have a supplemental program called Everside Healthcare. It's a joint partnership with the county. It allows supplemental health insurance or doctor's visits to be secured at a much more rapid rate than currently. I don't want to speak disparagingly of the medical field, but sometimes it takes 3 or 4 months just to get in to see a doctor. This Everside Healthcare Center is done in cooperation with the Board of Ed and the county. You can pretty much get in to see a doctor within a day or two and get those scheduled. I can't give you documentation yet on the usage, but we've elected the last 2 years, it's a 3-year contract, the last 2 years to pay the employee share because it is supplemental. It's one of those benefits we can provide to employees. It costs the employer about $60,000. It would cost the employee about $10,000. So if you take 10,000 divided by 100, by the time you're done, it's really not worth that exercise. This is the final year, and during the operating budget cycle, we'll give you the performance and how much it's been used and by how many employees to see if we want to continue this partnership into the 4th year. We can opt out in year 4 if we would like.
How has the employees reacted to this? Are they happy with it?
It takes a while to use it. I personally used it. I have nothing but good things to say about it from the other folks that have used it. You're seeing some nodding here. It is beneficial. The good news about it is your spouses, your children. It's almost like full coverage. It's just you can get in there a lot sooner than you can through
You certainly can't get into emergency rooms. Someone went the other day, they said they had every nook and cranny with people stuffed in it to try and get into emergency room. A friend of mine went there through emergency, can't get a room in another hospital where they need to go. So healthcare is absolutely full everywhere.
The other thing they do is they have the ability to give you prescriptions on the spot.
That's great.
There's a lot of things they can do, especially with the colds and sicknesses that have been going around. You don't want to wait 3, 4 days to get in to see a doctor. I found it beneficial, and again, I think our employees have found it
Very
beneficial.
good.
There's another item on there, incremental operating costs. There's about $193,000, $195,000 in operating costs that we identified as being needed when we expand the wastewater treatment plant at St. Clement Shores. St. Clement Shores project has just been bid. You'll hear about that later this afternoon. There is no point in adding the incremental operating costs associated with that project until it's ready to be built, or until it's been completed, and operational. So on our CIB sheets, our capital improvement budget sheets, there's a small square in the bottom right that you'll see this year. It's incremental operating costs. It's one thing to say this is what it costs to build it, but having worked with the county before, I know how commissioners, and maybe you all are the same thing, when the operating budget goes up that subsequent year, why didn't you tell us? Because we may have deferred this project, or may have had some different options for you to consider. We find it's much easier to advise what those operating costs will be at the time you're approving the capital budget. So $193,000 was identified during the capital budget improvement process. In addition to that, there's a thing called PFAS, which you've heard about, polyvinyl, Ed's better at saying that long terminology. It's a big thing. They're basically called forever chemicals. You read nothing but articles about it. The state is trying to eliminate that. Our position is it should be eliminated at the source. All that burden should not be placed on the treatment folks. The state, I believe, agrees, but it doesn't mean that we won't have to monitor to help the state in their positioning. It'll cost us about $16,000 a year. Whether or not we can absorb that in our current budget or it's going to be additive, if you see that in the future, that's why. And we'll give you some more details then. EDUs, later on in the presentation, we will go through the number of EDUs. We pay off our past debt, our incurred debt, through expansions of projects that are funded through loans by our capital contribution charges. They're one-time charges that developers or new customers pay, similar to Leonardtown and most other jurisdictions. We have found that those number of new EDUs is not growing. It's fairly constant, if not declining. One of my big concerns is what happens in that year where we get no additional EDUs to pay off that debt service. What ability do we have to charge customers to pay that past debt? That would require some legislative authority, which will happen, and it's scripted to happen when it's needed. So don't worry about that part. But right now, we're holding the line, and you'll see again on slide 27 and 28, the trending curves and why we're making that recommendation. Rate study recommendations based on the last presentation, we believe that the four-tiered structure is the way to go. If you weren't here for the last presentation, I know I've spoken with you individually. We'll get into that in more detail today, but you'll see that as a preface to the budget when we go forward. We can change it, we can revert back, but overall, this new rate structure is going to be less expensive. The bills will be less than they were for over 90% of our customers. So the rate structure, I think, is a good recommendation. We will include a public hearing reserve. It's usually 1% to 2% of the entire budget. You'll see the difference between the word baseline and proposed budget. Baseline is the baseline before anything's added on, before additional costs, additional what we call essential cost changes are added, and before we set our public hearing reserve aside. So if you hear the word baseline, it's not the budget, it's our baseline. On the next slide, we talk about our capital contributions and our system improvement charges. Last year, we projected what those charges would be for the next 5 years. Those roll into this year. They're targets for us. So when we prepare our budget, we're preparing our budget consistent with what we told the public we would be charging the year prior. So our goal is to always advise and then adhere to what it is that we advise them about. We have an oyster revitalization project that we fund. It's $10,000 a year. It's just part of being an environmental steward. Our commitment last year of $10,000 did not get used because these projects typically take about $200,000 to do. They're waiting for other partners to also participate. It's an agreement we have with the Potomac River Fisheries Commission, very good agreement, and we'll tell you more about that as we go through in the next few months. We had some employee benefit suggestions last year that we would like to carry over to this year as well. One of them was a phone stipend. $25 was the old number, $35 is the new one. It's based on use. It's not overly burdensome. We have 19 employees that don't take our health insurance, only 19 out of 100. We decided to implement a stipend, a health insurance stipend for them. There's a benefit to them not being part of our program, but if you make the stipend too lucrative and it's a disincentive to having insurance at all, you may run afoul. $1,200 just happens to be the same number the county uses. That's the reason for the number. We didn't know, there was no science there. We do as much as we can to try to enable ourselves and position ourselves to attract county employees over to the Metropolitan Commission when there are vacancies, and vice versa. They have taken many of our employees as well. We have some fleet telemetry that we talked about. CityWorks is now going to the cloud. CityWorks is our work order system. It's now going to the cloud. It's going to be more efficient and better. We also have some other platforms that we'd like to continue to support. We also have, this is a recent discovery, we have between 216 and 274, depends on the day, but I'm going with the high number, 274 no read, which is zero read meters, or meters that are reading inconsistent. Well, zero read means you don't bill, and inconsistent reading means you may or may not bill as well. We have purchased the first half. I think 150 meters are on their way, and the other 150 meters will require a budget amendment, not for new money, just to move money from one area to another, so that we'll have about 300. That'll give us 30 meters. I'll say an inventory. It won't really be an inventory, but there'll be 30 additional meters that we'll be able to use as spares, if you will. So that's a big thing when you're talking about revenues and expenses. If you don't have 274 people paying their monthly bills, I'd say we need to close that gap. So we're taking care of that, and thanks to our fiscal folks for pointing that out to us, and our operations people for jumping on it right away. A couple of slides I won't bore you with. What's going on in the water industry. I could talk about that for a while, and also what's going on in the wastewater industry. They're basically a series of concerns that have been raised over the past few years in the industry. Metcom is in pretty good shape as far as addressing those concerns, so I won't go through those. New commissioners, how many people do you have? How many have you been hiring? You have 5 a year, 2 a year, 4 a year. Well, since 2017, we've only had three new positions. That's about 0.3 positions per year. Every new FTE has to be fully vetted and justified. The fact that you have more work than you can handle doesn't necessarily mean it's an FTE issue. It might mean a prioritization issue or a redistribution issue. So we take FTEs very seriously, and you can see during that small period between 2011 and 2016, there was just a lot of growth to the commission. And speaking of growth, what is our overall customer growth? You see our internal growth, what's the external growth out there? Could be very disingenuous here with the graphs, but we notice there's a break point, about halfway through, somewhere around 2019 and 2020. What we've seen over the past few years since 2019, about a 0.76% growth, just round that up to 1% growth as far as new customers. New customers only growing at 1%. Debt obviously needs to be held at bay or kept under control, because the ability to pay off that debt is governed by the new customers. If you're only getting 1%, you need to be very judicious at how you borrow, and you need to be very judicious about using your reserves as well. It's just a historical graph that all the commissioners have seen year after year after year. Interestingly enough, it shows a linear trend. Most of them don't. I've taken all of our audited budgets since 2016, and the good news is they're both graphed, and there's a slope. Y equals mx plus b for all the engineering nerds. The slope of the revenue is not steeper than the slope of the expenses. There were periods in our history where those lines crossed in out years. It's not good trajectory to do that. And the good news is that we have lines that are very, very close to being parallel. Revenues is growing at about 5.5 and revenues at about 4.9. Our rate study projected that those would be around 5% between now and 2031. Seems pretty consistent. That's really the whole purpose of the graph. I also use it to project 2027 before we even get to 2027. So I'm hoping that our baseline is about 20.2 million, which is less than FY26's approved budget. So good news there as well. Speaking of debt, which we just did, we have a debt margin of about $69 million. It remains available for unanticipated projects. Our debt retirement is about $7.9 million a year. We have this little black rectangular, which we call a range of acceptable debt. You can see those blue dots going across from left to right. Those are the 86th percentile. It's been our experience that we project each year all of the projects that are approved in that year being borrowed on. Doesn't always work. You don't have a permit, the design's not quite done. We don't achieve the debt that we project. What's good about that is it's not 50% or 40%. In other words, we've realigned our capital budget to align itself with actual need, the actual time of borrow. So 86% is a pretty good experience level. You can see projected through 2031 that we're pretty close to being within, our target range. We're coming really close. Doing a little bit more than 5 seconds a slide, but in 2027, we had a decision to make. We either maintain our rate of increase for sewer at 2.7% or maintain our rate of increase for water at 2.1% or lower. What we found in the last presentation for the rate study is that either one of those requires subsidy. If we maintain our current rate of increase on the sewer side, we need to subsidize in 2027. If we maintain our current rate of increase for sewer, there'd be a future subsidy, a little bit each year, starting in 2027. The premise is that we do not subsidize the rates with our reserves. We made that a conscious decision. That used to be how rates were kept stable. We have lowered those rates of increase. Historically, they were 3.75 for sewer and 3% for water. We're currently at 2.7 and 2.1. We did a pretty good job for as long as we could. That is the purpose of those slides. I'm going to turn this over to Sean only because at the last meeting, he's the guy that introduced our consultant who performed the rate study. This one's a little bit more complicated, but our plan going forward, even though there's 5 slides associated with it, is to come in with an operating budget that goes from a 3 to a 4-tier structure. Currently, our tiered structure has a rate from 0 to 5,000, another rate from 5 to 5 to 20, and then the third rate from 20,000 gallons per month and over. The proposed here is a 0 to 5, a 5 to 10, a 10 to 20, and a 20 and over. Very fair. There's a lot of justification behind it. And with that, let me turn that over to Sean.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Commissioners. All right, so starting off on this slide here, from the presentation that was given on September 25th with the rate study, and the water races George had mentioned, maintaining the current 2-point rate of increase is not sustainable without Metcom subsidizing rates by fiscal year 2030. Also, the sewer rates, maintaining the current 2.7 rate is not sustainable without subsidizing rates with cash. In days cash on hand, those cannot be, they will have to be met, they cannot be met as early as fiscal year 2028. So we want to keep that in mind. The actual operating expenditures, and this was based off of the audit in 2025, were utilized as the baseline for projection, as George mentioned earlier. An intermediate tier proposed at 10,000 gallons per day. They're both reasonable and we found justified as well, with an EDU growth assumption, and we'll adjust that on a later slide as well. And operating inflation and CPI adjustments are appropriate. The fourth item there, O&M estimates equate to an overall 4.3 annual escalation for fiscal year 2027 through 2031. For the items, some more items that we looked at was in 2027 added on the septic hollow processing fee, 2028 grinder pump free maintenance and non-metered fees. For 2029 and 2030, one thing both of those have in common, that they need statutory authority. For 2029, the capacity reservation fee for allocated but unconnected EDUs. In fiscal year 2030, the system development charges.
So the capacity reservation fee was in direct response to Commissioner Dugan's inquiry about the carrying capacity of EDUs that aren't connected. We're still operating the plant. We're holding that place for them in the future, and there's a cost associated with it. And we came up with several different scenarios, one which was unreasonable because it covered all the costs, and others covered partial portions of that cost. Doesn't really matter. We don't have the legislative authority. We have other things we need to do before we entertain that. The third one, the FY 2030 item, would be a legislative item I would think I would bring back, hopefully before 2030, but the plan would be 2030. We got an election coming up, we've got changeover, we've got delegation changeover. It's sometimes good to wait till all that's over before you introduce something new. And that's to address the ability for us to charge for our debt service, and there are many different jurisdictions that do that. The denominator is all of your customers as opposed to just the new ones. So that charge would come drastically down. But it shouldn't, it's disingenuous and sort of not fair to charge existing customers who are already hooked up for expansions in your system. So you have to be very careful. It sounds reasonable to do, but it's gotta pass that first litmus test. Sorry, Sean.
So as George was mentioning earlier, the different tiers, the current tier, we have the first tier, second, and third tier. If you notice on our current tiers that we have, most of our customers are in tier 1 and tier 2, roughly 97%. And the alternate tier, if you see at the below area, that's where we separate tiers. That's where we add, we'll take tier 2 and have added an additional to tier 4. So originally tier 2 is from 5,001 to 10,000. We take that and break it down into tier 2 and tier 3. It still equates out to the same as far as the percentage of our customers. One thing to take note of is the rate multiplier over in the fourth column there. The first tier is at 1%, which remains the same. The second one, we kind of give them a little break. We're going from 2%, 0.2 to 1.5.
Well, it's a multiplier,
Yeah,
it's not a percentage.
Yeah, thank you, not a percentage. The second one is, 1.5. The third tier that we add on, that's going up 0.5 to 3, as you see. And the fourth, 4.5, which discourages excessive use. So we put our notes on the side there as well.
And in the second column, percent bills, I call that the capture rate. So tier 2, between 5,000 and 20,000 is about 27% of our customers. And you can see below that in the alternative intermediate tier, the same 27% is just broken down into 22% between 5 and 10,000 and 5% between 10 and 20. So
Here on this slide, we have the projected water charges and rates. The 5/8-inch fixed charge would be increased by only 1.9% in fiscal year 2027. That's 2% per year through 2031, fiscal year 2031. And here, what we've shown is the actual differences here, which is our monthly fixed charge only changes from the current going into 2027 is 21 cents. If you go down to the monthly water rates per 1,000 gallons, that's only a change of the current 2 cents actually, and subsequently each fiscal year afterwards.
And I'd also like to point out, we didn't do the math on all of these, but for the tier 1, from 0 to 5,000 gallons, the customer will see about 2 cents per 1,000 increase. But for tier 2, because that multiplier is only 1.5, not 2, under the new structure, they'll actually see 95-cent decrease per 1,000 gallons. It's not till you get to the tier 3, the excessive use folks, that you see over $1 increase. And again, it's $1 per 1,000 gallons. It's not significant at all.
The projected sewer charges and rates, same thing here. If you notice, we compared it on a 5/8 here. It's only going up $1.05 subsequent years, and that's for first tier here. We look down as far as the non-metered sewer charge, that's going up 54 cents first year, second year 36 cents, and so forth. The sewer usage rate proposed is a 9% increase, so that's what we came up with, that 54 cents.
And our largest customer is the Navy base. We have a contract that's been in place since 1979, and they charge their way. Theirs is going up by a quarter. But they're our largest customer, so that quarter translates into a fairly substantial amount.
So what does this look like? On the water side, the impact is 2 cents per 1,000 gallons, as George said, and on the sewer side, 54 cents per gallon. And if you notice here on this graph, the charges and the the gallons per 1,000 gallons. We base it on that. In fiscal year 2015, if you slide over to 2027 and 2028, they were still less than 2027, 28, less than 2015.
It's just simple by comparison. So I put this slide together, I gave it to Sean, I said, you can talk to this slide. He said, that's great, no problem. Well, it's staring you right in the face, right? Right in the middle. In 2015, what's the story, right? So we did a rate study in 2015. That rate study made recommendations to go to the current tiered structure. What we used to have was a minimum monthly fixed bill structure. And we went to an inclining rate structure. So when we did that, we did lose a significant amount of revenue because I'm not quite sure that all the estimating was done properly, so we did lose some revenue. But the interesting thing about the graph is if you go from FY 94 through FY 2015, that was an 8.2% increase per year. If you look at where we are today from FY 16 all the way through FY 27, you're looking at a 4.4% increase. So almost half of what the increases were before. But if we're going to be fully transparent, why don't we look at FY 16 through FY 31, because this rate study projects out. That rate would be about 5.1% increase per year, which is very consistent with the graphs we showed you earlier on expenses and revenues being between 4.8 and 5.1. Seems to be very in sync. So there is a break in the graph. We always look at those breaks in the graph, but the rates of increase are still significantly less than they were historically going forward. So it's an ugly graph, but we felt it was important to show where the history was.
And this is the monthly bill combined impact. And if you notice, this is based on the new tier. The increases for small and medium users would actually be lower than planned in 2027. Increases for larger users would be actually lower than planned in 2027 as well.
Can you go back one? So on this graph, this is your analytic special, right? 25th percentile, 50th percentile, 75th percentile, 90th percentile. That's great. How does that relate to us, really? Percentiles are great. We just talked about 4-tier structure, 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20. Why don't we look at where those fall? So this was what the consultant gave us because that's how they like to look at it. We like to look at it a different way. And we'll show you that slide in a few minutes.
So the monthly bill combined impact, this is the difference here. It increases at the alternate structure are lower than the current structure for tier 1 and 2, but it's higher for tier 3.
So that works really well. The majority of our customers will see the same, if not a lower bill. Question for me, I would hope, and I'll pretend I'm Dale today. What's the break even? You know, if it's a lower bill for a lot of our customers, how are we going to maintain our expenses? So what's that break even line where do the bills catch up, right? So at 13,000 gallons, that is the break point. So customers using 13,000 gallons a month or less will see a lower monthly bill, but those that are higher will see a higher, which ties in perfectly to that 10,000, 20,000 tier where you cross that excessive use platform. So
Yeah, I was just going to ask that.
yep, that's the true break-even point. But one of the other things we wanted to do is not disrupt the entire tier structure. 0 to 5 works, 5 to 20 works, because 20,000 is excessive use. It's defined as 4 to 4.5 times more than your normal use. It's 20,000 on the money. All we were trying to do is establish that intermediate tier. It just happened to be 10. Could we make it 13? We could, but I can't justify 10,000. I can just tell you where the break-even point is, and it's beyond 10.
Well, the lower usage are getting a break. You see that's the majority of customers, and the ones using excessive should pay a little extra.
And
Makes
for
sense when you
we
look
all
at it.
wash our cars and water our lawns. So from 5 to 10,000, 1.5 times more, not double. So it recognizes what people actually do.
Right.
And I had a whole slide on every community. I mean, we've got, you can name it Broad Creek, you name a community, I can tell you how much they use a year and what that means per household. And all of this is very in sync with those actual figures.
All right, back to you, sir.
Sure. On April 15th, 2025, we went to public hearing with this slide. I've already spoken to the slide. I'll just skip through it if you don't mind. These are our projections for capital contribution charges, those one-time charges. We said in 2027, we'd be charging $10,955 for water, $10,764 for sewer. When the capital budget comes in, these calculations will come along with it. And that's our target, if not lower. So the goal is that or lower. On the system improvement charge, those are monthly charges. Those cover costs of projects that are associated with upgrading and replacement, kind of more O&M type projects. They're monthly charges. For water, they're maintaining a flat rate at $17 a month. And for sewer, same thing. Rates proposed to be level between 26 and 2030. So $16.50 a month there, $17 a month there. Understand, of course, we have customers that are sewer only and water only, and we have those that are combined. So we always have two graphs that we track separately. We always show them additive because a lot of customers, the majority of the customers have both. But we do have customers that only have one or the other. The commission's favorite graph is probably this one. We talked about EDUs, new EDUs. The dashed line are EDU projections historically, and the solid line are what we actually saw. Well, when your EDU actuals are below your projections, and your projections are how you plan to pay off your debt, you really want to be above the line, not below the line. So you can see historically, it was a guesstimate. What we would do is we would talk to land use and growth management, ask them what they had in the queue, and assume they were going forward. Probably not the greatest plan. So I plotted all the actuals and all the projections, threw a trending line in there. There was only one trending line that was even remote. It's a parabolic, it's a parabolic function. I didn't put the formula on there, but we could. And it looks like for sewer, maintaining 147 EDUs per year is probably not a bad thing to do. You can see that 118, which is where we were last year, is a little bit below, but that in and of itself is not a trend. So far this year, we have 97, and we're only 3 months in. We're in really good shape with sewer, especially with we know what's in the queue, actually in the queue that'll be built. Same thing on the water side. Only that trending line shows that our estimate of 89 EDUs a year is typically exceeded. Well, I say that, but it's only typical for the last 2 years, not historically. We could probably lower our expectation there, but I don't see no reason to do that at this point. We have 95 EDUs as we speak today. 3 months in, we're already exceeding what we planned. If that's the case, that means you're getting more revenue than you projected, which is not a bad thing. The hardest part for us, we find that we receive more than we project on the water side than the sewer side. When the sewer side's short, it works out great overall, but we can't transfer revenues generated on the water side into the sewer side. We can't commingle. We're always okay, but we just can't commingle. It's a little bit frustrating because we wish we could, but as we spoke earlier about Chapter 113, it's the St. Mary's County Code. They tell us how to calculate, when to calculate, how to apply, and each year if we find a way to tweak it that's in our benefit, we go through the legislative process and get that changed. This is really geared towards 1 or 2 commissioners, and they're not in this room, and they're not Mr. Dugan or Mr. Gould. They're other commissioners. We incur debt, obviously, but we also accumulate reserves. We accumulate restricted and unrestricted reserves. we have a large reserve if you look at the 2024 audit. Fairly large reserve. If you look at the 2025 projected, we thought that a lot of our projects were going to come to fruition. We had some property issues, we had some permitting issues on several large projects. What that means is they won't come to fruition. We plan to use a lot of our reserves to fund those projects. Keeps us from borrowing, keeps the debt level down. It keeps people from staring at that large reserve, which we have had adjectives placed on that before, but it is by design, no different than the county operates. Our plan is to apply those reserves to projects, and we're going to do that. With the audit this year, where we stand today is our restricted reserves are at about 13.8 million, and our unrestricted reserves are about 16.1, a little bit less than our audited 24, which simply means we're pushing that same trend to the right a year. That's all that means. But I know when we go through our capital budget process, we go over to the county commissioners, somebody's going to be looking at our audit, and they're going to be saying that we're fat in reserves again, and we're going to give them the same story. We're going to apply those to our capital projects. So that's it in a nutshell. Probably could have just used this slide and taken 5 seconds and been done, because you might have bobblehead on this one, right? Possible baseline operating budget remains within 1 to 2% above last year's level. That's always a goal. Our EDU projections remain the same. We're not going to be overly conservative in growth. Our capital contributions, which is our charges to the customer, keep them the same or make them lower. Same thing with system improvement charges. Our rate of increases for service charges, we want to be consistent with the rate study, which simply recommends a 4-tier structure, which I think will benefit 90% of our customers. And keep forward looking. We do keep reserves. We have a Marley Taylor expansion project we're going to need to do. It'll be $30 to $40 million. Wouldn't it be nice to have reserves starting to build up so that we wouldn't have to borrow all of that, because it's going to come in one chunk. There's no way to phase a $40 million project. You know, when you infuse our capital contribution charges with a $40 million number, your capital contribution charges shoot up dramatically. We don't want to be in that position in 2035. You may not be here, we may not be here, but whoever is, someone's going to ask who was sitting here and who planned this out. So we're always going to be forward looking. And then in the end, we've got some consent decree projects. There are 3 of them. They're fairly large. They're $36 million or so. Whatever it is we do, when those bids come in, they are what they are. We'll find the money. If we have to defer other projects in our capital budget to make sure the funding's there, we'll do so. So that is it in a nutshell. We'll be back in January. We're going to put together an operating budget, a first draft. We're also going to start putting together our capital budget. We'll run through all the projects. We'll tell you how that relates to the capital contribution charges. We'll also come in with our operating budget, which will be consistent with the rate study projections. That's it in a nutshell. Please read through the material. Please email and call anytime. There is a ton of detail behind each one of these slides, despite its short narrative. So anything it is that you want, we will make sure that when we bring this back, that it'll be brought forward to everybody. So your questions will still be shared. We just ask you not to talk about the budget amongst yourselves offline, because we are subject to the Opens Meeting Act. And that is all we have today, unless there are questions. And as we have violated the ground rules, I don't anticipate there'll be too many at this point in time, but we encourage them. We really do.
Apology accepted. I really like the 4-tier rate. That really puts it where it needs to be. And I think any other comments on that, but I think people who use the most should be paying the most. That's basically what you've done. People in the middle, really, they got a break. People don't get breaks too often, so that's good. The ones that use the most got a break. And that one that you said is a funny looking graph, if a customer looked at that and said, wow, our rates are
Not as bad as they were in 2015.
Right. I think it was a great graph.
But for the viewing audience in this board, please understand the purpose of the 4-tier rate structure is not to generate more revenue.
Right.
That is not what we're trying to do. There's nothing behind the scenes to try to create. It's pretty much revenue neutral the way it's.
Right, it kind of balances out, but
It does.
it puts the burden of payment for what you use to the right person, is the way I saw it.
Correct. But again, it's not, it generates revenue, but it's not to generate more. It's not the purpose.
Okay, does anybody have any questions, comments, or anything? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you so very much for your patience.
No problem. Next, we have capital improvement budget amendment and a construction contract award for St. Clements Shores and a WWTP upgrade. Sean, you don't get to move. And thank you, Christie.
How are you all today?
Good.
So as you guys may be aware, we've been working on this project for quite some time, dates back to probably even 2020, where we've been collaborating with the health department, the county, and MDE to correct, we'll say, an environmental issue down in St. Clements Shores. We've had public hearings, a comprehensive plan amendment, and a priority funding area resolution or priority funding area plan that was submitted and approved by MDE, which all concluded with the resolution 2101, which was approved and signed by our board, the county commissioners, on January 1st, 2021. This resolution expanded the service area in St. Clement Shores to help serve 140 existing properties with developed lots and an additional 100 undeveloped lots in that area. The design was complete this spring, and the construction bid was put out advertised on May 22nd, 2025. 3 bids were opened on August 19th, and the bid packages were reviewed by both us and our consultant, Dewberry, who was our design consultant on this project. The apparent low bid is Scheibel Construction. References were contacted. We called around, did interviews with past project managers, and attaches a recommendation letter from Dewberry recommending the award to Scheibel based on their past projects and subs that they have listed that they're going to use on this project. This bid did come in a bit higher than we would have liked, but we have some good news in that the bids were received were all fairly close to each other, within 10 to 15% of each other, which is good, competitive range for us. And we'd also like to note, during the planning phase of this project, it's been a while, so just want to refresh everyone. We looked at different types of treatment for this facility. We went with the ENR, which is a higher level of treatment for this facility. We're currently at BNR, so biological nutrient removal versus enhanced nutrient removal. The ENR actually gave us a better value because MDE allows us to get a grant to go to the higher level of treatment for about $10.2 million, which brought the cost actually down below doing the BNR treatment to just a normal upgrade. And also, thankfully, because of the new technology, the operational costs were about the same for all the various alternatives we looked at. And the ENR actually has a smaller footprint, so it causes us to have less impact on the area. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Sean to go over the budget amendment.
All right. Good afternoon again, Commissioners. Today I bring to you Budget Amendment LB 260002. This project, as Christy mentioned, has been a collaborative effort since 2020. There's a detailed explanation regarding the funding on the second page of the memorandum that was sent over to you, dated October 15, 2025. This budget adjustment is for some additional funding that is needed based on the bid results. However, I come to you with good news. The first thing is the project has finally bid. Some more good news is that it is confirmed that the project is eligible for 10.2 million BRF grant. Yes, big restoration.
Right,
Okay.
that's a tricky one. There's a lot of
More good news that I have for you is that we have enough money to award the project. No supplemental appropriation or budget authority is required. Another good piece of good news is that there is sufficient unrestricted reserves which are set aside for this purpose, and we have been able to maximize the uses of these funds. The main goal of these reserves, as you know, is basically to avoid the cost of borrowing and controlling the rates. And my last bit of good news is $1.6 million of the unrestricted reserves are available for and recommended, not necessarily needed for a contingency 5% of the 1 million, which equates to about $250,000, which may or may not need to be pursued or needed. In other words, we may be returning some of these funds back to the board's reserve once the project is over. So without further ado, unless you have any questions, there's a motion in the portal for your consideration.
So this is an upgraded plant that's serving 140 now, and it'll expand to even those people a better system and an additional 100.
It currently serves, can I do this math? It's 100,000 gallons per day now.
Okay.
So that's divided by 250, whatever that number is. I did do math in my head. So that's the current flow rate. We'll then be adding enough capacity for 240 additional connections.
So those are additional. Okay.
And
Right.
Christie mentioned that it's addressing an environmental concern. Let's clarify that. The environmental concern is the health department going to the county commissioners because they have a lot of existing failing septic systems. They turned to us and said, what are you going to do about that? And, you know, it's in a no-plan service area, which means we're not supposed to expand. So that's why it took 5 years. We had to go through this arduous process of getting all the local approvals and state approvals, get it put in the comprehensive water and sewer plan, do all that before we could design it. So this is a project that has support at many different levels, but it is intended to address the failing systems in that area. And the other piece of good news is every now and then it's nice to do a sweep, right? Find out those projects that you can close out that have been on the books, and we've been able to identify a lot of projects that we can close out to make this budget amendment as small as possible. And as Sean pointed out, we like to budget and get all the authority that's needed. The $1.6 million that you'll see in the motion out of our unrestricted reserves balance is sufficient to cover not only 5% contingencies, just in case, but also an ad alternate. One of the ad alternates that we'd like to pick up, which is important, it's some repair to an existing berm out there which is failing. If all goes well, we would hope to return some of that $1.6 million. But the good news is that unrestricted reserve is not needed for the project, it's needed just in case. And any change orders that are salient enough to bring forward, we'll obviously bring that to the board.
Okay, are there any other comments or concerns? And if not, we have a motion. Would someone like to present it, please?
Mr. Chairman, I can make a motion if that's appropriate.
Please do.
For the fiscal and engineering, St. Clements Shores wastewater treatment plant, expansion phase B, budget amendment and construction contract. I'll make a motion for approval for number 2151 SF. We move that the commission approve and authorize the commission chairman to sign the FY 2025 budget amendment, number LB 260002, which includes the realignment of funding from prior completed projects and the potential use of up to $1.6 million in general fund unrestricted reserves and sewer capital reserves, increasing the budget authority for the St. Clements Shores wastewater treatment expansion phase B project, number 2151 SF, in the amount of $4,063,092.74, as recommended by staff, and direct staff to utilize all available funding sources prior to the use of the Commission's unrestricted reserves. You got me on a good one today.
Yeah.
And further move that the Commission accept and approve the award for Phase B construction of St. Clements Shores wastewater treatment plant expansion number 2151 SF to Scheibel Construction of Huntington, Maryland, with a base bid price of $22,810,20.00 as submitted in their bid dated August 19, 2025, and as recommended by staff. And further move, the award of this contract shall be contingent upon state funding approval, and further move to authorize and direct staff to execute all documents relating to this award, including but not limited to all approved change orders.
Thank you, sir.
I'm done. with
Well
that.
done.
You broke the 5-second rule.
That I did. But you want the money, don't you, George?
That's a lot of words, that's a lot of money. We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Can I make one
Oh,
quick,
yes, yes.
and it was a typo, it should be FY 2026 budget amendment versus 2025. I don't know if that,
You amend the motion.
I would amend the motion, I'd like to amend the motion to reflect FY 2026 instead of FY 2025.
sorry about that.
Quite
Thank
all
you
right.
for catching that. Quite important,
That is.
That it is.
quite frankly.
You need to stare at stuff so long, you miss.
Only a few numbers in there, so.
Yeah. Thank
We
you.
have an amended motion on the floor. Are there any other comments before a second? We have a second. All who want to approve that, say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions or any, not abstention, couldn't say anything, could they? Anything that does not want to approve that? Motion carried.
Thank you all, and we'll bring back progress reports as we go, because this is a big project for us, so it's kind of
Absolutely.
exciting.
Been going a long, long
It
time.
has been. Thank you very much.
Probably glad to see the hammer drop on that.
Very many people are very excited about it, so yeah,
Like that.
great.
Like that.
Thank you very much.
The motion was a little elongated for specific reasons. We mentioned that the unrestricted reserve was in case, so the motion is very clear. You expend all other sources before you touch
Before
that.
yes.
Also, this award is subject to state approval. It takes 4 to 6, if not longer, for the state to approve. Your award is contingent upon the state approval, so when we bid these, the bids came in a little higher than we liked. This happens all the time when we get MDE funding, because bidders have to hold their prices for up
For
to
the
6
time it
months,
takes
6 to 7
MDE,
months before we're allowed to make that award. So we like DHCD funding. So when we come back, you hear DHCD, the interest rate's a little higher, but it's so much more flexible and much more in line with estimates that we get from our engineers. Thank you again. It's really-
Holding something for 7 months is impossible in this day and age.
Yeah, it's tough. It's-
We don't disagree.
Next, we have the manhole rehabilitation project at Military Lane and Piney Point contract award. Hogan.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I have 2 items up for your consideration this afternoon. The first of which is the manhole rehabilitation project for Military Lane and Piney Point. The Commission uses a contractor to provide rehabilitation services to Metcom Sanitary Sewers. The sanitary sewer manholes are constructed of either brick or mortar and cast concrete. Both deteriorate over time. One of the most common causes for the deterioration is caused by biogenic corrosion from hydrogen sulfide, commonly referred to as sewer gas. This corrosion can significantly reduce the structural strength, leading to failure and increased groundwater infiltration into the structure. There are approximately 60 manholes prioritized for rehabilitation this fiscal year, which are in the Piney Point and California areas. There are also 3 manholes located at the Pembroke No. 1 wastewater pump station. Those will be elevated and rehabilitated as part of this project. Rehabilitating a manhole typically includes cleaning, regrouting, rebuilding, and sealing the base and channel, and applying a cementitious or epoxy coating to the interior. Funding comes from the CIB projects to address inflow and infiltration abatement programs. Staff is requesting board approval to accept and award the inflow and infiltration and manhole contract rehabilitation services to Equix Integrity Incorporated of Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, with the contract prices as submitted for a not to exceed amount of $460,000. I just wanted to note that this is not a contract award. We are merely requesting the board accept the competitively bid contract prices that are included in the quote. And with that, I will take any questions.
Any commissioners have any questions or comments on this?
That coating you say puts on, is that sort of like the coating they put on the pipes, like thing that would help maybe keep them deteriorating in the future or lessen it?
For the manholes, what they do is the whole process of rehabilitation is once that corrosion starts to eat away at the concrete, it basically forms it into a powder. So what they'll do is they'll knock off all that stuff. They'll put a cementitious liner on there in the really bad areas. They'll actually cover those with epoxy. And what the epoxy is pretty much impervious to that hydrogen sulfide.
That's what I was thinking, so that should help keep them from deteriorating worse.
Yeah.
Possibly in the
Yeah.
future, so that's better improvements to it.
Are these done by inspection where you find out, or is it like a PM where you go and check them all?
It's a combination of both. They do go in there and do the I&I studies when they do the manholes and they look at the sewer lines. They do look at all the structures. So it's almost a comprehensive look at the entire sewer system in those sewer sheds. So it is part of that program, but at the same time, at the Pembroke Station, was not really found by any inspections. It's just the operators going there, recognizing that when you have a heavy rain, all the water kind of runs directly to the wet well there. And once it's in the wet well, we have to take it, we have to treat it, and it raises our expenses, operations expenses that way. So by rehabbing this wet well and raising the elevation of it, we're going to prevent I&I from getting into that wet well that way. So that was more of an operational issue.
Right.
So these are found by both inspection programs and just people going out there and observing these things.
Okay, so in the case of raising it, you're actually gonna brick and mortar it up and then put the liner in? Is that-
Typically what we'll do is we'll just let the cast concrete top off of it. We'll put another concrete ring on it. And once we do that, then we'll go in there and seal everything and then we'll reattach the concrete on it.
Okay, very good. Ed's asking for money again. Any more discussion on this? If not, there is a motion. If someone would be kind enough to present it.
I'll take this one.
Thank you.
I move that the commission accept and award the manhole rehabilitation project, Military Lane and Piney Point contract award to Equix Integrity Incorporated of Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, contract number X7388337, valid through July 31st, 2030, for a not to exceed amount of $460,000. Further move to authorize and direct staff to sign all documents relating to this contract award for work effective June 30th, 2026, including but not limited to all approved change orders.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any decline? The ayes have it. It is accepted. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Commissioners. Next item up is the wastewater station rehabilitation project for the Black Duck Wastewater Lift Station. The Black Duck Wastewater Lift Station is located in the Callaway neighborhood. The original station was constructed in 1991 to serve the surrounding residential area and serves approximately 52 customers. There is another pump station that feeds into this station. That particular station serves 20 customers. So overall, we're looking at about 72 customers for this station. The site currently has a Smith & Loveless wet well mounted vacuum assist modular pump station. That's something that actually sits on top of the wet well. So there's nothing actually inside the wet well. It's all vacuum operated. So this current scope of work consists of replacement in kind of the vacuum assist modular pump station. The condition of the pump station is deteriorating and is beyond the anticipated 25 to 30 year usable life. Also included in our request is the installation of a new generator, relocation of the electrical service to accommodate the new genset, regrade and resurface of the station, a new fence, and improved driveway for better maintenance access. I should also point out that the request is not for a new generator. That's already been purchased, but the request is asking for the money for the installation of the generator. Staff will be performing all repairs and installations in-house or utilizing our emergency repairs contract or our electrical services contractors. Therefore, staff requests the board approve $400,000 for the rehabilitation of Black Duck Wastewater Lift Station to include the purchase price of the Smith and Lovelace station, as submitted by Smith and Lovelace Incorporated of Lenexa, Kansas. So there are two parts to this motion. With that, I will take any questions.
Do you have any questions? You said something 400,000, this is for 101?
We have two motions, Mr. Chairman. That's the second one.
There's a second one?
I did the same thing.
Oh, okay. Good, I caught that. We have a motion for someone to read, please.
Move that the commission accept and award the procurement of a new pump station to Smith and Lovelace Incorporated of Lexus, Kansas, for the total price of $101,618 as submitted in their quote dated September 19th, 2025. Also move that the commission authorize staff to obtain pricing and authorize work for the rehabilitation and repair work at the Black Duck wastewater lift station based on existing emergency repairs and scheduled construction contract number 23-07-C. Electrical services contract number 23-01-F. And St. Mary's County Government fencing contract number SMC-21-PS-111782. Further, move to authorize and direct staff to sign all documentation related to this contract, including but not limited to all approved change orders.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. There's no more comments. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All approved, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The ayes have it, has been approved. It gets more money. We have a second one, I want to leave.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, our next tentative meeting date, we can write that down, is November 13th, which seems very early, I would assume, because of Thanksgiving.
Correct, and December is also early as well because of Christmas. So November 13th will be our next meeting and December 11th is our December.
December 11th is our next meeting. Okay. We have some commission members' time. Does anybody have anything they would like to put out here for discussion? Everybody's happy?
Excuse me.
Everybody's waiting for Halloween and they can't?
Is the meeting the 11th or the 13th?
The 11th is the meeting in December for 11th. The meeting for
It's November
November.
13th.
November 13th.
November is the 13th. That is correct. Do we have an executive session today?
As it stands right now, we can take that off the agenda. We do not, we
That's
do not
what I
need
thought.
that.
That's great. But we can approve the executive session.
And if you look, if I can pass these out, and you guys can take a moment
Okay.
to review these.
Coming to you is the meetings of the executive session of September 25th.
Right?
You can just do a thing,
Yeah.
but this way here you can
Okay.
get Steve.
Please look them over and I will accept a motion to approve these minutes when you are ready. Guess we can't have any discussion of this because we're not in executive session, so
Cannot.
it's either a yay or a nay at this
If-
point.
Right, and if there are questions, we would have to postpone.
We will, if there's question, we'll just not approve this and bring it up next executive session.
Correct.
All right. if someone has finished and feels these are correct, we'll entertain a motion to accept these minutes.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, if that's okay.
Yes?
I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the St. Mary's County Metropolitan Commission Executive Session dated September 25th, 2025.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor to accept?
Aye.
One is-
Anyone opposed? And one abstention. Okay, very good. If there is not anything else for the good of the cause, do we have a motion for adjournment? Don't all speak at once.
Make a motion to adjourn today's meeting.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a second. And I get to do this